All right, I want to welcome everyone to our live Saturday morning presentation. The first Saturday of every month, we want to have a topic that we can use not only for ourselves, but for all our guests that you may invite to this presentation. Today, we're going to look at the importance of vitamin D. I want to focus on two areas for vitamin D. One is how vitamin D improves our immune system, especially as it relates to COVID-19. I've actually prepared a video for this that I'm going to show you in just a second. This video will be available to anyone that would want to use it for helping people understand the importance of vitamin D in relationship to the immune system, especially as it applies to COVID-19. And then I want to also spend time looking how vitamin D is important to cardiovascular health. Specifically, how vitamin D is both necessary for the creation of nitric oxide, as well as it's necessary to help prevent other things that can cause damage to the cardiovascular system. So vitamin D works both ways in preventing damage to the cardiovascular system, as well as enhancing the cardiovascular system. So with that said, what I want to do first is I want to really look at vitamin D in COVID-19. And I've prepared a video with regards to this. The name of the video for this is Vitamin D in COVID-19. And let me go ahead and play this. Everyone should be able to see my screen. Everyone should be able to hear the audio. If for some reason you can't hear the audio or see the information, you'll have to unmute yourself and let me know. But I think I've got this set up correctly. So here goes. In this video, we're going to examine if a vitamin D deficiency plays a role in COVID-19. Hi, this video is from Dan Hammer Health. And if you find value in it, then please subscribe to my channel. To look at this relationship between COVID-19 and vitamin D, it's important to address the following questions. Can a vitamin D deficiency increase the death rate for COVID-19? What determines a normal vitamin D level in your bloodstream? What form of vitamin D is most effective? How does your body convert vitamin D into an active form? Are there vitamin D deficiencies in ethnic groups? Are there other diseases associated with low levels of vitamin D? How much vitamin D should you consume on a daily basis? And are supplements a viable way to get your vitamin D? As you can see, we have a lot of valuable material to cover, so let's get started. We're going to focus on vitamin D deficiency and how it impacts your health, especially your immune system. At the time of this video, our world is in a COVID-19 pandemic. There is emerging data that shows how vitamin D deficiency can play a major role in symptom severity and mortality rates. The most recent study to emerge regarding COVID-19 and vitamin D deficiency comes from Indonesia. The title of the study is Patterns of COVID-19 Mortality and Vitamin D, an Indonesian study. In this observational study, they examined 780 cases and found that higher levels of vitamin D in the bloodstream were associated with decreased symptoms and mortality. In fact, when you look at the death rate, this association becomes startling. The following chart helps you see this. 50% of the cases had normal vitamin D levels. We'll talk about what is considered normal in just a moment. The remaining 50% of these cases were either insufficient or deficient in their vitamin D levels. For those with normal vitamin D levels, the death rate was 4%, meaning 4 people out of 100 would die from COVID-19. For those who had insufficient levels of vitamin D in the bloodstream, the death rate was 88%. 88 people out of 100 died. And for those who had deficient vitamin D levels, the death rate was 99%. 99 people out of 100 died from the COVID-19 virus. This death rate, or percent mortality rate, is like night and day. Which brings us to the question, What determines a normal vitamin D level in your bloodstream? To answer that, we need some background on vitamin D. In nature, there are two forms of vitamin D. One form is vitamin D2. This form is found in plants and is called ergocalciferol. Unfortunately, this form is hard for the human body to convert into an active compound. Because of this, vitamin D3 is the better source. Vitamin D3 is found in animals and is called cholecalciferol. Responsible sourcing of this form is typically produced from lanolin that is washed out of sheep's wool. As I tell my vegan and vegetarian friends, no sheep are killed or eaten. In fact, you are doing sheep a favor by shearing the wool and then washing out the lanolin, which is then used to produce vitamin D3. By themselves, both forms are inactive. Our body has to convert them to an active compound. This is usually done by the liver and then the kidneys. This image helps you to understand that there are three primary ways for your body to increase its vitamin D levels. First is sunlight. Sunlight stimulates your skin to produce what is called 7-dehydrocholesterol, which is then converted to vitamin D3. Unfortunately, in today's world, we are told to wear sunscreen, a hat, and long clothes to protect ourselves from sunlight and the potential for skin cancer. Plus, the darker the skin color, the less effect sunlight has on stimulating the skin to produce 7-dehydrocholesterol. Eating foods or taking a supplement with adequate amounts of vitamin D3 is usually the easiest way to increase your vitamin D levels. As you can see by this image, your body needs vitamin D3 in its bloodstream. As blood travels through your liver, it converts the vitamin D3 to 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, which is then converted by your kidneys into 25-dehydroxycholecalciferol. This final conversion is what is measured in your bloodstream. A simple blood test can determine if you fall into one of the following three categories. And it is these three categories that were used to separate the cases in the Indonesian study. Normal would be 30 nanograms per milliliter or higher. Insufficient would be 21 to 29 nanograms per milliliter. Deficiency would be 20 nanograms per milliliter or less. Again, what were the mortality rates in the Indonesian study? 4% for those with normal vitamin D levels, 88% for those with insufficient levels, and 99% for those who are vitamin D deficient. This issue of vitamin D deficiency may be an underlying reason for the disparities in COVID-19 cases when comparing ethnic groups here in the United States and around the world. The following study was published in 2011. It found that 41.6% of American adults are vitamin D deficient. But when viewed based on skin color or ethnicity, the following was discovered. 69.2% of Hispanics were vitamin D deficient. 82.1% of African Americans were vitamin D deficient. Again, this might be a significant factor in why COVID-19 has been a greater issue in the Black population groups, as well as Hispanics having a higher risk when compared to the general population. If you do a Google search titled COVID-19 and vitamin D, you will find other observational studies that support this relationship between symptom severity and lack of vitamin D, such as vitamin D insufficiency is prevalent in severe COVID-19. Emerging health disparities data regarding African Americans and homeless populations suggest that vitamin D insufficiency may be an underlying driver of the COVID-19 severity, or COVID-19 deaths are being linked to vitamin D deficiency. Here's what that means. The researchers dug through existing health literature to catalog the average levels of vitamin D among citizens of 20 European countries, and then compared the figures with the relative numbers of COVID-19 deaths in each country. A simple statistical test showed that there was a pretty convincing correlation between the figures, where populations with lower than average concentrations of the vitamin also featured more deaths from SARS-CoV-2. And the following quote comes from the researchers of this study. The most vulnerable group of population for COVID-19 is also the one that has the most deficient in vitamin D. End of quote. Low levels of vitamin D are also associated with the following diseases: tuberculosis, asthma, COPD, viral respiratory infections, bacterial respiratory infections, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And there are other studies that show how vitamin D supplements reduce arterial stiffness and blood pressure. This lowers the risk for both strokes and heart attacks. Which brings us to our final two questions. First, how much vitamin D3 should you consume on a daily basis? To answer this question, I'm going to use a table from the Cleveland Clinic. We've highlighted in yellow the age category for most of the people viewing this video. According to our government, you would need 600 to 800 IU, or international units, on a daily basis. However, the Cleveland Clinic would recommend an upper level intake of 4,000 international units per day. The RDA is the minimal amount to provide some benefit. The upper level intake from the Cleveland Clinic would be for optimizing your intake of vitamin D3 to help maximize your potential benefits. The average of these two recommendations is 2,300 international units per day. So taking at least 2,000 international units per day would be a level that would benefit most people. Finally, our last question in this video. Is there a recommended supplement for getting the needed level of vitamin D3 per day? Before I answer that question, let me show you the following foods that most people would choose to increase their vitamin D intake. Salmon, if it's fresh and wild, you can see that 3.5 ounces would give you a range between 400 to 1,000 international units. But if that salmon was farmed, then the same amount, 3.5 ounces, would only give you 100 to 250 international units. And if you're trying to get your vitamin D3 through fortified milk, you can see that 8 ounces only gives you 100 international units. As you can see, you would need to eat a lot of this food each day to get the needed intake of vitamin D3. Supplements would be a much more cost-effective way. Most good vitamin D supplements will provide you with 1,000 international units or more per serving. Because of this, a good vitamin D supplement makes sense. I'll give you my recommendation for a good vitamin D supplement in another video that I'll post later this week. In the description below, I have additional links to articles that will help you better understand this relationship between vitamin D and COVID-19. If you would like to get more videos on how to improve... All right, we don't need to see the rest of that. So again, I'll make that video available to everyone with the link. And as the description, or as I said in the video, in the description for that video, there are additional links that you can go to. There'll be links to all the information that I shared in that video, as well as there's additional links in that video for people to, again, explore this aspect of how vitamin D significantly improves the immune system, especially from the standpoint of helping to offset the potential for the COVID-19 virus. There's some research that is out there that just came in the last year that shows that the difference between vitamin D deficiency versus normal vitamin D in relationship to the rate of getting COVID-19. The research showed that for those people, when they compared vitamin D deficiency versus normal vitamin D, the individuals who were vitamin D deficient were 76% more likely to get the COVID-19 virus than people who had normal levels of vitamin D. So this is really a significant issue with regards to vitamin D. And as we know, COVID-19 is a killer. But also what is a killer when COVID-19 didn't become this pandemic is that the #1 killer of men and women worldwide is cardiovascular disease. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus on the importance of vitamin D in cardiovascular disease. So let me get down to some additional information here in the presentation. And this reminds me, before I do that, let me decrease the size of this a little bit. This whole aspect of vitamin D and COVID-19 has become so important that there is an open letter that physicians and researchers have signed on to help governments around the world better understand this relationship between vitamin D and COVID-19, to the point where they're recommending governments begin to screen their population bases for vitamin D levels within the population. Because again, if you're looking from a health standpoint, especially when we look at this next section with regards to vitamin D and cardiovascular disease, if we can help people understand that they have a vitamin D deficiency, especially in ethnic groups, as we talked about in the video, as well as the research shows that like the Hispanic community, the African American community, or the Black community, the level of vitamin D deficiency is a lot higher, and the effects of cardiovascular disease, the effects of COVID-19 are also greater in those population groups than what it is in, say, the white Caucasian group. Again, this really becomes important for people to understand what their vitamin D levels are in their bloodstream, and if they're at deficient or insufficient levels, then one of the most cost-effective ways to help people improve their health is to get themselves on a good vitamin D3 supplement. So again, this is really an important issue, but like I said, vitamin D in your cardiovascular system is also an important issue. And in the video, I shared with you that vitamin D intake can help to prevent heart disease and strokes. And it seems to do this in two specific ways. One, improving endothelial function, and secondly, reducing arterial stiffness. Now, as we've talked about in previous seminars that we've done or presentations that we've done on Saturday, your lining of your vascular system is called the endothelium. One of the things that the endothelium does for your health is to create nitric oxide. There's enzymes within the endothelium that are designed to convert what's called L-arginine, an amino acid, into nitric oxide. Those enzymes are what are called the eNOS enzyme. E stands for endothelial. So you have different NOS enzymes in other parts of your body, like you have one in your nervous system, you have one in your immune system, but in the vascular system, you have the eNOS enzyme, which is designed to convert L-arginine to nitric oxide. But it's a calcium-dependent reaction, meaning that for you to properly convert L-arginine to nitric oxide, calcium is necessary for that enzyme to work properly. If you look at research that is out there, there's over 150,000 peer-reviewed clinical studies in the area of nitric oxide therapy. When you look at those studies, you see a wide range of results. Some studies show no benefits from L-arginine. Some studies show huge benefits from L-arginine, and some studies show maybe adverse effects from L-arginine. Well, when you look at single ingredients in a study, your body doesn't work off of a single ingredient. Your body is holistic in the way that it approaches. If you've ever seen any kind of chemical processing charts of what takes place in your body, we are just one large chemical factory with multiple, it's just mind-boggling the number of chemical reactions that go on inside your body. So with regards to the eNOS enzyme, I can provide those enzymes with a good source of L-arginine. But if I don't have proper calcium levels in the bloodstream, then that eNOS enzyme doesn't function properly. So I could have plenty of L-arginine present, but I get very little nitric oxide produced because I don't have proper calcium. And it's the combination of vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 that help to properly regulate this. So I was able to find a study that actually looked at this. It's from the Nanomedical Research Laboratory at Ohio University. They conducted a study to examine the relationship between nitric oxide and what's called peroxide nitrate. So for simplicity in looking at this study, understand that nitric oxide is good. You cannot live without nitric oxide. It is that critical to your cardiovascular health. It is what causes vasodilation to occur in the vascular system. Vasodilation improves blood flow. And then there's other benefits that come from nitric oxide. Nitric oxide helps keep blood platelet cells from sticking together, so that naturally reduces your risk for strokes and heart attacks. And nitric oxide at high enough levels in your bloodstream can initiate reparative mechanisms that can then heal damage done to your vascular system, which means bringing more of your endothelium, this tissue, back into a healthy functioning tissue. Peroxide nitrate is bad for your system. So what they did in the study is the researchers introduced a human hormone called angiotensin II. That hormone causes endothelial dysfunction. When that occurs, there was a decrease in nitric oxide and an increase in this peroxynitrate, which again is bad for your system. They then introduced vitamin D3 into their subjects. And when they did that, there was a significant reversal in what was happening inside the vascular system. By introducing vitamin D3 into their subjects' systems, there was a 10-fold increase in nitric oxide and a 10-fold decrease in this peroxynitrate. So you had a 10-fold increase in what was good for the cardiovascular system, and you had a 10-fold decrease in what was bad for the cardiovascular system. So that study suggested that by maintaining normal levels of vitamin D in your bloodstream, you can help maintain normal endothelial function, and you can help your body to properly produce nitric oxide for improved blood flow. Plus, what they also found is that it helped to reduce vascular inflammation that then leads to arterial stiffness. Now, one of the things that I talked about in the study or in the video, and when we looked at the Cleveland Clinic, when we looked at the US government's recommendation of 600 to 800 international units of vitamin D on a daily basis, that is the minimum to derive a benefit from vitamin D. But that doesn't mean that you work from an optimal standpoint. When we looked at the information from the Cleveland Clinic, they put the optimal level of intake for vitamin D3 on a daily basis at 4,000 international units. In the video, the average of that was 2,300 international units. And in the video, I suggested for people that if they had a daily intake of 2,000 international units per day, they could most likely see some significant improvements in their cardiovascular health. Well, this study from 2016 on vitamin D deficiency, the one that we just talked about, they gave their study participants 2,000 international units per day. And when they compared their baseline readings, what people were at prior to the study versus the results that they had after introducing 2,000 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis, there was an 18% drop in arterial stiffness. There was an 8.2% decrease in systolic blood pressure. That's the upper number of your blood pressure reading. And there was a 9.1% decrease in diastolic blood pressure. So I'm just gonna take these things from a simplicity standpoint, and I'm gonna round off this systolic and diastolic blood pressure to 10%. All right. If my blood pressure was 160 over 90, and I was able to reduce my blood pressure by 10%, that 160 would be 16 millimeters of mercury. So I would go from 160 down to 146, still a little bit high, but significantly less than that blood pressure. My 90 would go down to 81. So my diastolic blood pressure would be closer to the normal range, and my systolic blood pressure would be getting closer to what they consider to be the normal range. So you can see how just the aspect of introducing 2,000 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis can make a significant difference for people in their cardiovascular health, as well as help them with regards to their immune system and helping their immune system be able to better protect themselves from the COVID-19 virus, as well as other types of respiratory problems that people could suffer, such as asthma, COPD, bacterial infections of the respiratory system, viral infections of the respiratory system. You know, this whole aspect of vitamin D is so significantly important for people's health that it really is imperative that we help people understand that they need to find out what their vitamin D levels are, so that if they're in the insufficient or deficient range, they can begin to implement a vitamin D supplementation program that can best help them get those vitamin D levels in their bloodstream into the proper range, 30 nanoliters per deciliter. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let me go back up here just to make sure I don't say something wrong. Yes. Okay. So, wrong. That's what I want. There it is. Nanograms per milliliter. Okay. So they would want to be at 30 nanograms per milliliter or higher so that they're in the normal range. So this is why it's really important for us to help all the people around us, especially for our friends in the Hispanic and the Black community, to understand that they can make a significant improvement in their overall health just by finding out what their vitamin D levels are. And if they're insufficient or deficient, start on a vitamin D supplementation program that will help get their vitamin D levels into the normal range. So with that said, do I have any questions from anyone with regards to information I've shared with you today? Again, we're recording this presentation. I'll make this recording available to you on Tuesday. I'll also make the recording that I did, or the video that I did on COVID-19 and vitamin D, also available to you if you want to use that for your own personal ability to educate other people on how important this whole area is to their overall health. Anyone have any questions for me?
Hey, Dan.
Yes, Judy.
So there's so much information in here. I don't know why anyone wouldn't just simply choose a good vitamin D supplement with all the information that you've shared with us today. It's just like it's a no-brainer. And I know you didn't talk about cost and products, but I've got two questions actually. One, is it expensive normally to get up to those 4,000 IUs a day?
Okay, and what was your other question?
And my other question is, there's so much opportunities to get vitamin D all over. Is there something we should be looking at, or a specific product that you would recommend that you use personally?
Okay, so let's look at cost, and let's look at what to look for in a good supplement. And you can go to any health food store. You can most likely go to any drugstore, and you can find vitamin D on their shelves. And it comes in all different types of forms. Usually the best form, if you're going to take a vitamin D supplement, is a chewable form. Because if you take a hard tablet for vitamin D, a lot of times in a hard tablet, there are binders to hold that tablet together. Sometimes those binders, depending upon what company manufactures it, those binders don't break down well in your system, especially as you are older. As we age, our digestive system doesn't work as well as what it does when we're younger. Our level of stomach acid is not the same. So sometimes it's difficult to break down tablets that are, the hard tablets that come. I don't think I've ever seen vitamin D come in a capsule form. So typically it would be a tablet or it would be chewable. Sometimes you'll find vitamin D in a spray where people will spray it into their mouth. That's also a viable delivery system because then it's absorbed in your mouth and into your bloodstream. And remember, you've got to get vitamin D3. We don't, and so this, I want to back up just a slightly. You also will find vitamin D2 supplements in those stores. My suggestion is never waste your money on a vitamin D2 supplement. I understand that a person might choose that because they're vegan or vegetarian, but you're going to get very little benefit from a vitamin D2 because your body has to convert vitamin D2 to vitamin D3. It cannot directly take vitamin D2 and go down this pathway that we showed in the video where it's being converted by the liver and kidney into this final form. The vitamin D2 has to become vitamin D3. So that's difficult for your body to convert D2 to D3. So it just makes sense to do vitamin D3. Understand that even if you're a vegan and vegetarian, you're not eating an animal. I'm sure a lot of vegans and vegetarians have pets. So these are sheep. They're humanely treated. Responsible sourcing. The wool is sheared. The lanolin in the wool is washed out, and then that lanolin is used to create vitamin D3. So always vitamin D3, and either spray or chewable is always going to be more effective in delivery than a capsule or than a hard tablet form. Now, from a cost standpoint, depends upon who the company is. Yeah, you can get some really cheap vitamin D3 supplements, but are they effective? Most companies don't make their own supplements. They're made by a third-party vendor. That's not to say that's bad, but it also is to say that most third-party vendors do not go through the necessary testing to make sure that their final product has the amount that they're saying is in their nutritional label. Typically, anytime that the government does what they do an investigation into the supplement industry, is that they randomly pull supplements off the shelves, and when they go to test them, in almost all cases, at least 50% of those supplements don't meet label claims, meaning that the ingredients that are on their supplement list either aren't there or aren't at the levels that they indicate. Sometimes there's way less, sometimes there's way more, and sometimes there's things in their supplements that don't belong in their supplements. So it's really important to make sure that you find a manufacturer that, one, produces their own supplement, and secondly, tests their supplement prior to sending it out to the public to make sure that that supplement meets all the label claims that they have for it. Now, given that, yes, there's a recommendation that I have. I use it personally. I use it with all my clients, and it really depends upon what the focus of your client is in terms of maybe what you might recommend to them. So let me reduce this a little bit. So in Synergy Worldwide, which has products that we really believe in, Our supplement of choice for vitamin D3 is typically one of three. If you want the most cost-effective way for a person to get vitamin D3 into their system, I would highly recommend the vitamin D3 from Synergy Worldwide. It's a chewable supplement. It's cost-effective. It's $18 a bottle. But when you understand, there's 75 servings per bottle. So when you look at that, a serving size is 2 chewable tablets. Now, what's important to understand is that one chewable tablet has 62.5 micrograms of vitamin D3. How does that relate to international units? Well, for whatever reason, about 3 years ago, the United States decided to change their labeling laws, where we used to see vitamin D3 in international units. They required them to change that to micrograms. So it's very difficult for people to compare how many micrograms do I need to take to meet what they put out as a recommendation in international units. So 62.5 micrograms would be 2,500 international units of vitamin D3. So one tablet, 12 cents, would give that person at least the recommendation that we're making of 2,000 international units. The study that was done on arterial stiffness and cardiovascular health, what did they use in their study? They used 2,000 international units of vitamin D3. What does the Cleveland Clinic recommend for upper limit for vitamin D intake? 4,000. What was the average between the government and the Cleveland Clinic? 2,300. So you can see that a person could just use one vitamin D3 chewable tablet from this product from Synergy Worldwide and be able to get 2,500 international units on a daily basis. Now, if they wanted to be a bit more aggressive in getting their vitamin D levels up, then they could use 2. So if they're doing 1, then that bottle is going to last them for 150 days. If they do 2, the bottle will last them for 75 days. That's 2.5 months. So 1 tablet a day is 5 months worth of vitamin D3 from Synergy Worldwide. And if they do 2 tablets, it's 2.5 months worth of vitamin D3 in a chewable tablet that has a powerful way of helping to increase their vitamin D levels in their bloodstream. If a person is really concerned about their cardiovascular system, then I would recommend our product of choice for helping to nourish the lining of the vascular system to optimize its ability to create nitric oxide through our product ProArginine Plus. That product, ProArginine Plus, has the necessary amount of L-arginine, but also has the other ingredients that are necessary to optimize the eNOS enzymes of the endothelium to convert that L-arginine into nitric oxide. And part of that delivery system in ProArginine Plus includes vitamin D3. There's 40 micrograms per serving. That would be the equivalent of 1,600 international units of vitamin D3. So a person could use ProArginine Plus and 1 tablet from the vitamin D3, and between the 2 of them, that would give them 4,100 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis. My suggestion, if they decided to do that, would be to do 1 packet of the ProArginine Plus first thing in the morning, and then with their dinner meal, have their vitamin D3 chewable. That way they would get vitamin D3 into their system. They would get plenty of vitamin D3, would be approaching that upper limit that the Cleveland Clinic recommends to help to optimize vitamin D3 levels in their bloodstream. Now, in addition, about 6 months ago now, I can't remember the exact timing for this, but Synergy Worldwide introduced a product specifically designed to boost the immune system. It's a wonderful product. And that product, each serving has 25 micrograms of vitamin D3. So there would be 1,000 international units of vitamin D3 per serving. Person might decide that they want to combine the immune booster with the ProArginine Plus. If they do that, according to the information from Synergy Worldwide, you'll get 2 times the effect, meaning that the ProArginine Plus product complements the immune booster product, that when combined together, one serving of ProArginine Plus with 1 serving of immune booster, and you get 2 times the benefit of each product. You would also, if you're looking strictly at vitamin D levels, 1,600 international units from 1 packet of ProArginine Plus plus 1 packet of immune booster, which is 1,000, you would be getting 2,600 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis. Or another option for a person would be to combine the immune booster with the vitamin D chewable. 1 packet of immune booster with 1 chewable, not taken at the same time. Again, separate them so that your body has a better ability to absorb the vitamin D3. Have the immune booster first thing in the morning or at dinner time, whatever you want. Just make the chewable opposite. So if I do immune booster first thing, then with my dinner meal, I take a chewable vitamin D3 tablet. Gives me 3,500 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis. Or first thing in the morning with breakfast, I have my chewable vitamin D3, and then, I get home from work, do my immune booster, and then I have my dinner. So again, there's a lot of ways that you can combine and interchange these 3 different products depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. Does that help answer your 2 questions, Judy?
Yes, thank you so much. It really does. And yeah, and I never thought about taking immune booster at one time and then a vitamin D tablet at another time. So yeah, that was a great addition. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that way you optimize your ability to absorb it into your system. Because again, what are you doing? You're going to, you need to get the vitamin D3 into your bloodstream, but that's the beginning. Then it's got to go into the liver and be able to, the liver then converts it to the next form, which then goes to the kidney and converts it to the next form. And I also want to bring up some other information here. One of the things that I looked at is what causes vitamin D deficiencies. And this thing here struck to me immediately: obesity. A body mass index greater than 30 is associated with lower vitamin D levels. Fat cells keep vitamin D isolated so that it's not released. Vitamin D deficiency is more likely in obese people. So if you're working with a person, and this is the sad thing, I'm approaching 68. I see this every time I go out. I'm an observer of people, and it's just when you look at it, next time you go out, and I know that we've lived in COVID-19 pandemic for a year, and that things are, with the vaccines that have come out and are continuing to come out, people are getting vaccinated. You're seeing more and more of American life returning back to normal. Unfortunately, and this is from 2020, that in the United States, almost 37% of adults are obese, and almost 33% are overweight. So if I take the 36.5 and add that to the 32.5, that's 69%. Over 2/3 of the American population is either overweight or obese. Next time you go out, you just look at people, and it's easier to count the skinny people or the more normal weight people than it is to count the people who are overweight and obese. And that whole aspect of obesity adds to vitamin D deficiency. Combine that with ethnicity, And you can then understand how those factors, obesity, overweight, combined with ethnicity, is become a driver towards vitamin D deficiencies here in the United States. I can't speak for the rest of the world. These are obesity information and vitamin D deficiencies that apply to the United States. So I can't apply this to the rest of the world, but we live in America, and we have a sad state in terms of our health here in America. And part of it has to do with our food choices. Part of it has to do with our lack of exercise. Part of it has to do with all these things that are a factor in our health. Obesity, overweight is one of them, which is a driver for vitamin D deficiencies. So it just becomes imperative, especially if you're helping a person who is overweight or obese, begin to take measures to address their vitamin D deficiencies. You'll most likely need to have them take more vitamin D supplementation than they would if they weren't in those types of situations. Anyone else with any other additional questions that you would have for me this morning before we close this presentation?
Hello, Dan. It's Donald.
Yes, Donald.
Excellent video. Lots of information. I just want to point out that 2 years ago, 2019, February, in fact, my vitamin D level was 35, and I thought that that was good until, you know, we read on the story on COVID. And since then, I implemented synergies, the one proarginine per day and one vitamin D. And last year, what I checked, I had, it was up to 70, twice as much. So that's what I find to be a good benchmark. One proarginine plus per day and one vitamin D3 to be optimized, so it's fully optimized. What I want to mention in your video, somewhere in the halfway point, I don't remember which slide it would have been, but I thought that I heard the exact opposite to what you were saying. So when the video comes out, I listen to it to see if I heard it correctly or if you said it in the reverse.
I'm not sure exactly the last part, Donald, but certainly in the section of video, we talked about what would be a level that would be acceptable for most people, which was 2,000 international units. That was, when you look at the government at 600 to 800 versus the Cleveland Clinic at 400, the average between those two is the 2,300. And so basically what you're saying to us, Donald, is you're taking one stick of proarginine, which gives you 1,600 international units of vitamin D3. And then at some point in time during the day, you're doing a chewable vitamin D3 from Synergy, which gives you 2,500. So when you combine those two, you're getting 4,100 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis. You're at that upper level that the Cleveland Clinic recommends. And what you found from your experience is that it's more than that has basically doubled your vitamin D levels in your bloodstream, where you're now optimizing the benefits of vitamin D in your vascular system.
That's absolutely correct, Dan. In
That's
fact,
great.
it's literally twice as much, from 35 to 70.3. And this was over a short period of time. Like I said, since we saw that information come out of the vitamin D deficiency.
So I have a question for you, Donald.
Sure.
So you had an initial blood test that showed you at 35. Then you implemented a vitamin D3 strategy. You had another blood test that showed you to be at 70. Have you had a blood test done after that to measure your vitamin D levels?
No, I haven't. In fact, that and just to talk about some timing, I have my Proagenine Plus in the morning, say, 9 o'clock or so, 9:30. But then I have my vitamin D at lunch
Okay.
with my meal.
All right.
The test that I got done, it was February last year. So it was a year later that I got the test done. So I haven't done a test yet this year, which would
Okay.
be a year.
All right. So I'll be curious to know what your levels are. When you get that, just let me know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thanks for sharing, Donald.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for an excellent presentation.
You're welcome. Do I have anyone else with any questions before we say goodbye? All right, I want to thank you for your time today. Today is Saturday, tomorrow is Easter. I hope you and your family have a blessed Easter Sunday, and we'll talk to you next week when we come back to another live presentation on Saturday. Thank you, everyone. Take care.